I'm dumb and I need help all the time. What ladies they tell you don't have a number? I can't hear you. Estrogen. Estrogen. Okay. Get high off estrogen, can't you get out? Uncle Tom again, Uncle Sam, Uncle Charlie, I don't know, these uncles we get around. Estrogen. Did you realize that the female also generates progesterone? I think women have a healthy progesterone. You know, all the guys say, if you're a real man, you got a lot of testosterone. But the women only seem to have, what do you call it again? Estrogen. So which can we tell you? Let's get an estrogen shot, let's take an estrogen capsule, let's get us some more estrogen. In probability, most of you are not lacking estrogen for the ability to manufacture, they're lacking progesterone. Because they never told you that you needed progesterone. I have a number of tapes. A lot of people have a lot of books. I'm too dumb to write books. But I do speak from the heart. I've been speaking from the heart now for a long time. I've done a lot of research for a long time. And through some other men, Chem, Douglas, Delbert Blair, and others, I found out that the progesterone is also secreted in the sebum of the ovary, and that there are 3 glands, and I have a tape. Well, in fact, I brought the glass bottle to see if they go tonight. I brought the entire man, woman, and children videotape, and I may have 1 or 2 in audio. It went pretty quick. I've got about 2 sets left, so don't get angry, that's what's left. And it looks at a metaphysical look at man, at womb man, and at, of course, children. And it does it, I think, very succinctly. I think the Creator was working through me. I allowed myself to be intelligent for a time, and I did some research. You won't believe some of the things it says. One of the things it says for the female is that you have 3 glands that they never told you about. 3 glands in your body that they never told you about. And I'll share it for you for free. You still buy the tape to find out how they work. One is that 3rd lobe on the thyroid, which is going to grow in most women now, and they won't tell them why. The other is called the apupha and the parapupha. It's located in what is called the rhesus affix, the cavity there outside of the womb, which therefore cysts sometimes go to term, and you think it's a baby that's being carried outside the womb. But they won't tell you what's really happening down there now. And when you have estrogen deficiency, which you probably don't, and you give yourself more estrogen, it can cause all kinds of problems, possibilities. See if I did bring that all that on the tape. I moved it over, but I wanted to move it there. Well, anyway, I won't waste time. There's so much to cover. There's a green sheet over there that has a component part of the breakdown of what estrogen deficiency can bring about and what progesterone balance can bring about. And it's by Dr. Lee over there, who's done an excellent job of research on it. And I think we've got 4 bottles of that green left too. Let me say this, hopefully I'll see you at that table, because I really don't want to take back to Chicago any of that. I don't think I should have to. You understand the value of some of the products that we have. Estrogen does a number of things to bring about feminine qualities, and progesterone supports all of them. Estrogen without progesterone, they're lost women. More nervous, less calcium and phosphorus, magnetism potential, and you can get less nutrients out of most of them. But they talk about one thing, they don't talk about the other. Last but not least, as we're still looking at healthy, is the idea, and this is going to jump a little bit into the wisdom part, that each day now we are plagued by the modern provocation and proliferation of intelligence of a beast that is on this planet. Now, unlike what some of you are going to hear now, you may not like it, that beast does not just come non-melanated. Because their servants are served better than the beasts themselves, and believe it to be be so much that they've lost track of truth or never knew it. They serve the capacities in this crazy society of ours. So don't blame the white man and the Caucasian. Blame anybody who has science, who has religion, who has education, and refuses to use it in a spiritual way. And our universities and laboratories are full of them. Full of them. There's something called the terminator seed. How many already know all about the terminator seed? Let me see your hand. Okay. How many of you not even familiar? You've never heard of the term terminator seed? As an overview, because we have a lot of studies to cover, the terminator seed is a new seed that your government, now specified, should be used by people who plant and grow seeds. When you grow seeds, unless you're sprouting them, is to germinate and give flower, plant, leaf, and fruit. And they're saying to you now that these seeds are now manufactured to give you one crop and one crop only. Farmers plant corn, barley, oats, grass, grain, whatever they're going to do, as long as they rotate, there was not a drought, there's not a flood that washed away, these things would come up year after year after year. That's what farming used to be. And in fact, as you replenish the minerals in your soil and work with it again, the things even do better and heated themselves up. Well, now it's illegal to use anything but the terminator seed, which comes up one time and dies off. Terminates. People who now sell you seeds that are not of the terminator distribution of variety are now illegal and can be lawsuited. Ever heard of this? Wonder when your Congress passed that one through. Wonder when your House of Representatives opposed to the people passed that one through, and the Senate agreed with that too. Just to digest a bit, you know, this about 10 days ago, they got, about 3 months ago, about 10 days ago, they just passed 2 more laws that are just, it just amazes me what they have. Back to the terminator seed. If you have this, this means pretty soon that there will be no farming, because the farming will be controlled by the government who issues seeds. And it used to be they paid farmers not to what? Or grow. Remember when they used to dump corn and wheat and things into the ocean and people over in Africa were starving? Now you don't have to worry about them starving. We're going to be starving here. In Africa, we're going to be starving. Because without a seed that can grow itself again, you're dependent on somebody giving you the seed and you hope it's a seed for what you want. And understand, along with that, they now have what is called gene splicing. I have a tape called First Genocide, Then Genocide. Right? Listen to it. Understand that what they are now doing, whoever this they are, they is, they be or not they be. Why do they be? That's the question. The whole idea here is that they are setting up now insect venom in tomatoes, no possibility. They may have some other kind of hormone that came from another source in the potato, celery, rutabaga, cabbage. They are gene splicing. And they don't have to tell you what has been gene spliced. Some say genetically altered. Some say irradiated. Because in addition to that, they are now radiating your food, genetically altering your food, and they don't have to tell you what foods have that done to them. But if you know how it used to look, and how it used to taste, you'll find that that's running amok in most of our produce. And you don't have a choice about it any longer. I don't know if you have a choice about it to begin with. Why do I say that you're going to need every kind of aid you can get? Why do I say that if the magnets begin to act like they're irritating you, take them off? 9 times out of 10, you never have to take them off, because we're now running into such a false world, such a mechanistic, horrible, non-feeling, non-spiritual, non-biological world out here. I'm going to have to follow the previous thoughts tonight. I'm going to jump to something I wasn't going to jump to. In fact, I was almost in with this one, but instead do it now. So, when I argue, when I get in trouble, I'll do arguing. Along with these other wonderful aptitudes and probabilities that we've been discussing, they now have what they call Chem sprays. Chem sprays. But they don't call them that. They call them contrails. How many of you ever heard of a contrail, a jet contrail, airplane jet contrail? How many have heard of a chemtrail, airplane jet chemtrail? Many people look in the sky and they think they're seeing a contrail. Emitted by the burning, again, supposedly a fuel in a jet. Well, that's not what contrails are comprised of. Most people don't understand that. It has nothing to do with the burning of the fuel in the jet exhaust. A contrail is formed by ice particles in a certain portion of the stratosphere that you fly through, and the moisture, either from the engine or in the air, because of the altitude and the progression of the jet, icicles these little water particles, and the ice spews off the back of the fuselage and trails behind the plane. It has nothing to do with jet exhaust. I heard some people talking earlier, and I didn't see, I said, come to the lecture. That has nothing to do with jet exhaust. That is a particle usually above 38,000 feet that the plane's fuselage ices and ice crystals form behind it as it flies around. That is what is called a contrail. A chemtrail definitely comes out of not only fuselages but everything else, and will trail sometimes for 50 miles behind that plane. And if you haven't seen them, you haven't looked at the sky, because there are over 240 major United States cities, as authority, and in Africa, in Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Japan, they are everywhere. And not one word is said about what they're doing up there or why they're doing it. Not one word. These chemtrails have been analyzed. And some of the analyzation on some of these chemtrails find that they have manure, non-human T cells, cryptosporidium, pneumococcus meningitis and hepatitis. They have molds. They have what they call, I don't even know how to put it, different fungus, and they have a classification of the fungus. Different times they're spraying all kind of things from the air over major cities. And people look up and say, oh, that's a mighty long jet exhaust. Right on contrail, or they look up and say, oh, it's flying over the jets are there. That's what they do. And naively walk away. Well, that would be good if naively walking away got rid of it. Odds against naively walking away wins at 50,000 to 1. Naively walking away is not going to do anything. It's just like he who hides head in the ground and sticks his rear up. You know what you're going to get. Why is it being done? Why is it being done so extensively? Why is it being done without question of permission from most of the United States citizens in which are involved in this, whether they like it or not? Where do the planes come from? Who gases them? Who flies them? If they're chemicals, who supplies them? What are the canisters? This thing has gotten to be one of many big problems here on this planet, and nobody's given the answers to why it's being done. Or the answers being given, but there's no dramatic statement made. In fact, in the area of Chicago, they come over 3 times a day with 15. They come at least about, I would say, 3 sorties with 15 planes each on each sortie, which means, again, there's a lot of manpower being involved in the propagation of this. And they started off in a learning experience. They started off leaving these little clouds behind them, chemicals, and they would stay kind of non-particularized. They would spread a little bit, they wouldn't drift, and you just see it, they'd hang there, and some would not hang there. But now, after close to 7 years, and the last 3 have been intensive seeding, or whatever you want to call it, they've got it down to a science, where most areas now in our United States are covered with a constant haze, not even clouds. How many of you noticed that haze or something now hanging over your city that you didn't see before? Let's just see how students are. Just well about it. Somebody's reluctant. Thank you. If you look up, there's a haze. You don't get this cumulus or they call this other cloud. I can't even think right now. But these little hanging clouds and all like that. No, this is a haze. Fly through it. Detroit recently, and all along I couldn't even see the sky. I just pulled a little blind. I usually have window seats and it's worth looking out. Just flying through a haze. And they gotten so good at it now that they're getting a little laggard. They don't care. But they figure there's nothing you can do about it. This is one of the 2 generators, the patent number and everything else, so you know how to make it up. I didn't make this. That disperses these chemicals. They put them on these big gooseneck jets, huge jets. They fly above 80,000 feet. Most of the commercial flights and definitely passenger flights are equal to use. They have dispersal units and tanks, and they even have a little fan that's in the middle that whips it around so it disperses it evenly. That's why it's gotten so good now. As soon as you see a patch of blue sky, rest assured within the next 4 or 5 hours, definitely the next day, it's going to be gone. They must have 1,000 of these craft or more, flying over everywhere. Nobody saying anything about it. And I gave you a breakdown of just a few of the chemicals that they found in these sprays. They estimated that tens of millions of people around our planet, and it means also here in the United States, have taken sick with what is called influenza-like symptoms. Influenza-like symptoms. Well, there's a certain one called 1 subtype A. 1 subtype A. Which sets up a 4 to 6, 8-week illness if you're 70 years of age. Probably a 6-month illness if you're below that, and even less if you're a youth. They find that the symptoms and byproducts of this can be abdominal gas and swelling. A lot of people now experience a lot of gas, and you don't understand why. I say, well, I haven't eaten that bad, but got gas pains, abdominal gas pains, bloating, heart palpitations, heart conditions of all kinds, cardiac arrest. Well, they're finding that a lot of these heart patients, they found that there is a type of bacteria that's eating the cell wall of the heart. And they have not been able to categorize where this bacterium came from or how it's gotten lodged in so many human beings nowadays. There's mold and fungi contaminating now our bodies, sprayed and breathed in by you. There is a black mold that has been proven to be a microplasm of a black fungus that is particulated, which means it had to be laboratory research researched and engineered and now being sprayed and loosed upon our planet. Devastating black mold. Remember again the old story about the Black Plague? Anybody ever hear these stories about their early teens and 16th, 15th century about the Black Plague? You remember about, I think it was about October last year, don't quote me directly, but they did some research and said they were digging up bodies in Siberia and other places where people died of the Black Plague. How many of you remember hearing anything about that? You see, you do keep up. Why in the world? Why out of the world would you dig up a body of a person who died of a Black Plague, which might have wiped out 3/4 supposedly of the Earth's population, and do anything with it? What is the logic? Give me that knowing smile. You realize that that is almost pathological and psychotic for somebody to do that? You're smiling, you're already like me, neurotic. Deep neurosis growing every minute that I read the papers and listen to what these wonderful people do. Why do you exhume a body of a person who died of something to wipe out half the world population to do anything with it unless it's going to be detrimental? Or are you just a scientific madman and you don't care, you just got to do some kind of research on something, so why not that? And if that's the case, then your scientist is sick. Or there's a sickness on the science on this planet. Wise. You haven't got around the money having as well. It's new to this keeping about wisdom. There was a sheet some of you got that listed healthy, wealthy, and wise. And one of those rounds, I don't want to leave up any subject before I really jump the gun into some heavier stuff. Anybody have that around the healthy, wealthy, wise sheet? No. Okay, I guess not. But that healthy, wealthy, and wise sheet, do you have a copy of it? I don't want to leave off anything that was really happening. Most of them didn't seem to see it anyway, but I don't want to do that. Do you have one there? Okay, let's see. I might have to. Hold on. Okay, well, we never had one. Okay, did you find it? Okay. Could I meet halfway over here?
Hey, like I said.
Oh, where do you go behind the blackboard? What? Money to the rescue. As I say, I don't want to go over anything here that's close to the difficult. As I say, I want to do a lot of admin. Okay. Since I jumped down to why in one sense, and a couple of things here in the healthy aspect that I didn't cover, I'm going to leave two here. But that's going to be the best summation that I can give. I don't want to give that to last time. Okay. I want to move over to what is called the HAARP. It's not like the seniors group, but it's not. The Kona, Alaska Project. It's spelled out HAARP as an acronym. It simply means High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project located in Kona, Alaska. That HAARP program, as it's been called, and it's been said Gabriel might blow it, the angels might play it, but these are not angels, they're definitely ungodly. This program started off as a Wisconsin health program, ELF Research Extra Frequency Project, underground. Supposedly the idea was to be able to contact submarines and troops and platoons of men over the horizon without interference from the enemy. Obviously, all of this was a war-footing consciousness to develop this instrumentation in the first place. They found out during Vietnam and World War II, and so that to contact a group of men over the horizon, and you know, since the Earth is simmering ground. Over the horizon, when that happens, the signals don't go over, don't bounce down, so the enemy gets it, or the broadcast is reached, and they wanted to supposedly do something to support that. That was supposedly the intent of the PLF project. And the Gakona, Alaska HARP project had a number of reasons, but one of those was to perfect ground-to-air communication and being able to contact truth placements and things over the horizon. Another one, and I want you to hear this well because I'm telling you the truth. With the so-called space shuttles and satellite launches, they use rocket propulsion mechanisms. The rocket rockets up, spends a lot of fossil fuel and costs a lot of money to get the payload flying in, and the rest of it jettisons or floats around in space as flotsam, and then they set up these orbiting satellite patterns. Well, they found that they used and expended a lot of money in the form of fossil fuel thrust to get the payload flying into orbit. So they said one of the things that the HARP program would do, and this is an array over 50 miles, who knows in actuality that was the last connotation that they gave, an array of antenna so calibrated in space that they would beam energy into space. And then they said that what they wanted to do when they finally got those frequencies understood, they would bring them in, beam them so they became one beam, and shoot that beam up in through the ionosphere. And they said they wanted to burn a hole in the ionosphere of Earth. That's through the troposphere, into the ionosphere of Earth. And they said if they could do this just before a launch, they could lessen the fossil fuel payload need, and they could heighten the payload and lessen the fuel load, because they burn this thing up, and then this thing would fall on out, and therefore it wouldn't have any resistance, gravity, and all of this, and then it would start getting shoot out into outer space. That's what they said they wanted to do. Over the horizon communication, and they could launch factors, use less fossil fuel burning. Now you want to know what they really want to do?
Yeah.
What they're really doing? I don't think they do. Some of you may already know that I can only verify your worst nightmare. They have used the HARP program to not only burn a hole into the ionosphere, but to work with secret projects by which they can develop beam weaponry. Beam weaponry, where you get sound guns, and you already had used that. They used that in Hawaii some time ago, by which you put two different receiver and antenna on one side on a battle, and then you beam across a signal, and the sound from that go down into the valley and nullify and destroy and shake them out of the woods. But with beam weaponry, you're now using particle beam accelerators, whatever again, it beams it up, bounces off the satellite or whatever else they have up there, and then it comes back down as a big light beam ray gun, burning and crisping everything in its path. Or if you've got a mirror or something up there, reflects off of it, and then you send it out and you burn a craft in flight. Or if you just want to burn up a section of the sky, you burn up the hydrogen atoms, or the oxygen atoms, or whatever proton atoms this thing is accumulated to that's in that particular area. Excellent weapon, and any, of course, any airplanes or anything in there, they don't exist. Something we all